There is a silent killer of relationships. And I'm not talking about cheating or big arguments. It's something that happens silently, almost imperceptibly killing the relationship. Now, in today's weekly wisdom, we're going to discover 3 steps to stop your relationship from falling apart. So let's dive in. Now, let me know in the chat, why do you think love fades? That's the first thing we're going to look at. Why do relationships go stale and become dry in the first place? So let me know your thoughts in the chat, and if you want, you can pause the video. We're also going to look at the 2 cups of every relationship. Every relationship has 2 invisible cups, and we're going to look at how that affects the relationship. And then we're going to look at 3 steps to stop love from fading. So we'll go through those points. So let's first of all look at, why does love fade in the first place? If you look at this couple here, it's almost like they're in their honeymoon phase, looking into each other's eyes, holding hands on the beach. Now, if you're in a long-term relationship, or even if you've been in a relationship only for a few months, how often do you still do that? So the question is, why does love fade? What are your thoughts? Okay, so hopefully you've written something in the chat. So when I examined what does love look like at the start, it's so beautiful. There's like butterflies in the stomach. You're so excited to see that person, to talk on the phone, especially let's say you're at work, and you just can't wait till the evening comes, because then you can speak to that person. And you really treasure their company. The mobile phone is not so important when you're with them. And sometimes you can talk for hours with them. One of my clients told me he spoke on the phone with his partner for about 5 hours. And this was at night time. It was like 2 o'clock in the night, and they spoke all the way till 7 in the morning. And I was like, what the hell did you talk about? And his response was life. Basically, they spoke about anything and everything. Whatever came to their mind, they were just free with each other. They just spoke freely, and ended up speaking for 5 hours, like laughing and joking, and and it was so natural for them. At the beginning of the relationship, it's especially when you hug, you hold hands, there can be a lot of, maybe there's a lot of kissing and maybe other things, a lot of affection in the relationship, and you laugh a lot. That's one of the things, one of the indicators of, shall we say, a honeymoon relationship. The couple are always laughing, the 2 people are always laughing. And sometimes, maybe behind closed doors, they might even cry together as they remember certain things that happened in their lives, or they share with each other intimate moments, and they cry together. And they spend time together, they go out for meals. And basically, they are building a life together. And one movie I watched, the partner asked the lady that, why do we get married? Why do people get married? And her response really blew me away. The writer, I have to give credit to the writers. She said, a relationship is where you are the witness for each other's lives, where you become the witness to each other's lives. It's like, who wants to just be by themselves all of the time? It's so much more fulfilling when we have a witness, when we have somebody that we can share our intimate moments with, etc. And whether it's our achievements, our successes, or even our failures, like that. So being in a relationship allows that process of having somebody to witness what you go through. Now, so we discussed how a relationship can be so beautiful at the beginning, but then it fades, it can change. So let's look at what are the things that change. So the butterflies stop, yes. When the honeymoon period is over, then all those love hormones that were there at the beginning, they fade, they die down. And so then what's left? You have to work at the relationship. That what's left is the actual relationship with each other. Now, what changes in a relationship? Sometimes when two people get married, bang, overnight, the relationship changes. Why? Again, if you have any points, please let us know in the chat. And one of the reasons why, one of the things that happens, especially as the relationship continues, we start to take them for granted. And this is especially true when two people are engaged or married. Because the tendency is, it's almost like the chase is over. I know this especially speaking to many men, although it could be the case for women as well. It could apply to women as well. But especially for men, what happens is when they know when there's some commitment there, either engaged or they get married or something like that, some symbol that their relationship is solidified, there's a commitment there, they feel the chase is over. And for them, that's where the excitement was. The excitement was in getting that person, that female, to get into a relationship with them. And it's like, that's a big mistake if you think that the relationship is over when the chase is over. Unfortunately, it happens at subconscious level. So sometimes I have these conversations with men, with my clients. I have to remind them that actually, no, the chase isn't over. For me, it's like we do the chase every single day. So we have to keep making the effort. Otherwise, it's natural for us it's human nature to take the other person for granted. What's that expression? You only really appreciate someone or something when they're gone. You only really appreciate someone or something when they're gone. So that's too late. If there are too many arguments in the relationship, I'll be talking about that in a bit detail later. And sometimes what might happen is the priorities change, whether it's work priorities, whether kids come along, whether some extended family member becomes sick, and so therefore they don't spend enough time with each other. So because the priority changes, then the relationship can start to dwindle. And ultimately, what we're going to talk about today is this point about neglect. So neglect in the sense of we stop making an effort in the relationship. So whether it's because the butterflies stop, whether you think the chase is over, you're taking them for granted, etc. It's like ultimately we stop making the effort in the relationship. And love means we fight for the relationship. Love means we want to be there for each other. Now, just to clarify here, I'm not talking about fighting for a relationship where the partner is abusive, manipulative, or narcissistic. So putting that aspect aside, we can save that for another weekly wisdom. We're talking about a healthy relationship where the love has faded. Now, interestingly, I was having a conversation with a client recently. The couple are getting married. And she was telling me, she was discussing with her partner. And she asked him, would you prioritize the kids over me? So they're not married yet. Once they have kids, she was just kind of reflecting about the future. And she asked him that question. And he said, sure, I would prioritize the kids first. And she said, really? So this idea of making an effort with your partner, yes, it may change with young kids, because obviously with young kids, the parents obviously have to prioritize them. But the point is temporarily, and this was the point she was making to her husband-to-be, was that in the future, the kids are going to leave. The kids will grow up. They'll have their own life. They'll go off to university, get girlfriend, boyfriend, have their family. They'll be absorbed in their life. And what's left? And she was making a point that we've got to prioritize each other. We've got to make sure that we continue making an effort throughout our marriage. I was like, very good. I taught her well. So because at the end of the day, it is especially when the kids leave, it's the couple. They're sitting there day to day, they're interacting with you. That's all that's left is the couple. You see that with the older couples. You see that probably with your parents if you're already married and you've moved out. They just have each other left. So now I wanted to go to this, explain this concept because it's fundamental to what we're going to talk about today. How relationships can fade, how the love in the relationships can fade. So there's shall we say, an imaginary concept, but it helps to explain how a relationship works. There's two invisible cups in every relationship, a positive cup and a negative cup. And the idea is we want to put as much as possible in the positive cup and have as little as possible in the negative cup. Now, especially at the start of a relationship, you'll notice that people will pour their energy into that relationship. But then, as I was saying, we get comfortable with each other. And then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the loving relationship gradually turns into neglect. They take each other for granted. So what that means is we stop pouring into the positive cup. So you can see in this diagram here, at the beginning of the relationship, it was there and it's about halfway. But then due to neglect, they've stopped giving to each other. So what often changes is that compliments stop and complaints start. And then laughter becomes rare and arguments become common. And this is often when people come to me. Flirting becomes awkward and silence becomes comfortable. That's not a good sign. Especially where there's silence, it means there's no communication. If there's no communication, there's no understanding. And how can there be love without understanding? Where there may have been appreciation before, where appreciation now lowers, the expectations increase, especially when kids come. And where they may have felt valued before, then because there's no appreciation, because there's higher expectation, now the person feels used. And it's like, where did the love go in the relationship? If you look at how it started, and the butterflies and the blinking of the eyes and looking at each other, holding hands, and the hugs and the kisses and all the affection, it's like, where did the love go? So when there is neglect, what happens is we start pouring into the positive cup. At the same time, gradually, what starts to happen is, because of these complaints, arguments, silence, as in not talking to each other, expectations, and feeling used, it starts to fill up the negative cup. And that's a red flag. That's where this spells danger in the relationship. So although there is positive in the positive cup, now the negative cup has outgrown the positive cup. There's more in the negative than there is in the positive. That completely changes the dynamics of the relationship, because now we're going into the phase where every little thing bothers the partner. Whereas when there's more in the positive cup, if I take this back slightly, when there's more in the positive cup, if somebody does something, that may annoy you or that may bother you, because there's more positive, you can kind of forgive them more easily. You can let them off. Your anger isn't so violent, shall we say, so high. But now, when there is so much in the negative cup, now a little thing can just make you explode, because you've got so much anger, resentment, hurt, pain in that emotional cup, in that negative emotional cup. So let's look at then, what do we do about this? What are 3 steps to stop love from fading? So I'm going to tell you the first one. I'll just tell you a quick story. One of my mentors, it happens to be a spiritual mentor, His Holiness Indradumna Swami. So he travels the world, and he often goes to weddings and he gives speeches. Although he's a monk by profession, you could say, although he's celibate, although he's not married, he's very spiritually aware, and I believe he was married before. So he's often asked to give advice and give speeches at weddings. So one time he got on a plane, and he was on his way to give a wedding speech, and he was thinking, what am I going to say to this couple? And on the plane, he sat in the middle seat, and this elderly gentleman sat next to him on one side, and this elderly female gentle lady sat on the other side. And then they started to talk across him, because obviously he was in the middle seat. So he turned to one of them, and then he asked, I looked at them, actually, they were really old. And he said, how long have you guys been together? And they said, ask us how old we are first. And he found out they were in their 90s. He was like, wow. He said, how long have you been married then? They said, 70 years. I mean, obviously this is a rare thing nowadays, especially divorce rates are so high. One of the reasons why I'm doing these sessions is to attack the divorce rate, shall we say, is to really help people to actually get the fundamentals right in the first place. So my spiritual mentor, he thought, this is a good opportunity to find out from these guys. They've been married 70 years. Let me see what they say is a secret to a successful relationship. And what they said was this: give more than you take. That out of 70 years, the reason why they were so still in love, why they were still so, shall we say, bonded together, is because they both had the principle of we give to each other more than we take in a relationship. In other words, love over lust. So in terms of giving more in the relationship, what that means is putting more in the positive cup than you do in the negative cup. There are going to be days where you fight, you argue, you get on each other's nerves. If one or other is in this an emotional state or stressed, there's naturally going to be some friction there. But because this couple had been together for 70 years, because they had focused on putting more in the positive cup, what ultimately happened is they could forgive each other for the, shall we say, the stepping on each other's toes. That naturally happens in a relationship. So as part of this step, shall we say, putting more in the positive cup, I want you to think about your relationship with your partner, especially if you are married or you are engaged. I want you to think of them as if they were still your boyfriend or girlfriend. Why? Because when you think about the boyfriend-girlfriend stage, it's very much you're making an effort. You make much more of an effort to try and win them. So when you get into that mentality on a day-to-day basis, even if you're married, if you think, okay, this is my boyfriend or this is my girlfriend, it's like you still have to win them over today. It's like the chase is still on. The chase happens every day. And when you get into that mentality, it totally changes the mood. The human nature is to take people for granted. But when you get into that mentality, it's like, no, today, my job is to win them over. I'm going to do all these little things to win them over. Then that changes the mentality. Whereas when we think, okay, chase is over, we've got the ring, whatever, and it's like we take them for granted. Another aspect of this is the little things are what make a big difference. So again, going back to the chase, often what would happen is at the beginning of a relationship, maybe you'd buy a big bunch of flowers, or on Valentine's Day you buy big presents. Now it's about doing the little things, but doing them consistently. It's not that we have to do big gestures. It's do those little gestures and keep that love alive. Keep up that chase on a day-to-day basis. Totally changes the experience you have in your relationship. So number 1, give more than you take. Number 2 is use their love language. Now, this may, for those of you who know what love languages are, this may seem obvious, but I just want to highlight, although it may be obvious to theoretically, it's not always so easy to do if your love languages are different. Hence why I'm really kind of highlighting this point. So just to be clear, in case you don't know what love languages are, this was developed by a person called Gary Chapman, or discovered, shall we say, by a person called Gary Chapman. He's written a book, The 5 Love Languages. So this is kind of just taking the framework that he uses. So the 5 love languages are, number 1, or one of them is words of affirmations. So this is where it's like words of appreciation, saying sweet words, being kind verbally. Quality time. So this means putting your phone away. Many happens to be men. Many men have this concept of quality time means I'm sitting with my partner. And maybe they're watching TV, maybe they're watching a football game, maybe they're playing, I don't know, he's playing a video game or something. They in the same room. Quality time means actually looking at each other. If you're not looking at their eyeballs, shall we say, or looking at their face, then that's not quality time. Take it like that. And an interesting point is often in these, shall we say, more intimate settings where you're having quality time, sometimes people still keep their phone there. And that still says, it's almost like it makes this point that just in case the phone rings, I'm not putting you as a priority. So it's almost like actually keeping the phones away and separately, like from wherever you are, or keeping them in the bag, keeping them in the pocket or whatever, out of sight, and giving that person full on attention. It's actually become such a rare thing, which is why I'm highlighting it now. Sometimes when I do workshops, I actually get people to do this exercise where, say, get into pairs, ideally female and female and male and male, and then sit opposite each other and then just look at each other in the eyes and smile. And it's like sometimes I find that people start crying. I'm like, because it's such a rare thing to have someone's full attention these days. So let's give it to your partner. Put the phone away. Receiving gifts. So this is quite an obvious one. However, what I will say is, although receiving gifts is one of the love languages, what I've noticed just from observation, just talking to many people, receiving gifts I often find is quite rare. It's quite rare to have this as, shall we say, the priority. In general, people love all 5 of these, but receiving gifts, to have that as your highest, is often very low. For most people, is actually a lot lower. So people think that, by giving gifts, that is going to please so-and-so. It's not always the case. Acts of service. So this is where we do something that is thoughtful, and it could even be buying a present. This is where we do something thoughtful which helps the other person out in some way or another. So just an example of this, and it just to clarify and make the distinction between receiving gifts and acts of service. I was with one client and we were kind of analyzing what her love language is, and she was saying, I was looking for examples, and she gave the example that her partner bought her a what's it called, like a coffee, a portable like coffee container for coffee mug, with the lid on it, so she could take it for work. because in the morning she rushes to have her coffee, and then sometimes she doesn't have enough time because she's rushing in the morning. So when we analyze that, at first she said, "Oh, so presence is my love language." And when we analyze it deeper, it's like, no, it's not the gift itself that was, shall we say, that made a difference. Because when I asked her, like, if he buys you flowers or does this, does that make a difference to you? And she was like, no. So it was the thought that went behind buying her this gift. So acts of service is about the thought that goes behind it being thoughtful. And then this again could be an obvious one, is physical touch. So having that, whether it's through a hug or even just holding hands, or being, holding a part of the body, a non-sexual part of the body, obviously, like that, having that physical touch. And these 5 are different ways in which people receive and give love. Now, let's just talk about just in terms of receiving. So in general, we have 1 or 2 which have maximum impact, shall we say, which mean the most to you. And the other three or maybe 4 are not as important. So for example, a lot of people, getting gifts on their birthday is important, but otherwise throughout the year, when somebody comes to the house and gives them a gift, it doesn't really, shall we say, touch there. It doesn't make them feel loved. They'll look at the gift, say, "Oh, thank you," put it to the side, probably never even look at it again. For somebody, they might, if the words of affirmations is not important, they'll get a birthday card, say, "Oh, thank you so much," so let's see their name on it, put it aside, and sometimes they never even open it. And you've spent ages writing such a sweet message in that card, and they don't even open it. So understanding the other person's love language will really help in terms of you knowing what to put into the positive cup, how to put into the positive cup. So when you understand which one of these in particular, or 2, are the most important, then do those things. So let me put my hand up and have a confession here. So when I first got married, I used to come back from the train station, there's a flower shop, so I used to buy flowers for my wife, bring them home and give them. So after about the 3rd day, my wife told me, "Nij, like, why are you buying flowers?" I'm like, "It's a present. I'm trying to show my love and affection for you." She was like, "No." She said, "Stop wasting money. If you want to show love and affection," she said, do if you could do the washing up, do the dishes. I hate having a dirty sink. And make the bed first thing in the morning." So initially I started doing those things. Then gradually, I kind of got out of the habit. And then I started reverting back to, so I actually revert back to my love language, which is words of affirmation. And yeah, that's the main one. So then, and physical touch. And so then I started to do those things more. And again, occasionally I'll buy a present. And I remember at one point we had such a bad argument because I still wasn't doing the washing up and I wasn't making the bed in the morning. And for me, because that's not my love language, I couldn't, it didn't compute that why is she making such a big fuss, until we had that argument. And when I got to the crux of the argument, it's because I didn't do the washing up and because I didn't make the bed in the morning. And that's when it actually hit me that person's love language actually makes the difference between them feeling loved and not loved. Like when you don't give that thing, and going back to what we're talking about here, ultimately is how the relationship can fade. How I ended up putting more into the negative cup because I just couldn't get my head around, like, how is washing up making you feel loved? It makes her feel loved. So the way that I finally understood it is like if somebody is talking Spanish to somebody who only speaks French, it doesn't get to them. Whatever you're trying to say, it doesn't. So although I may have been giving her words of affirmation, appreciation, and giving her physical affection and things like that, buying her flowers, it wasn't actually reaching her because I'm not speaking her language. If she only understands French, then you have to speak in French. And it was a real slap in the face after, I think 5 years of marriage or whatever. I was like, oh, right, I finally get it. So sometimes we need to, although we may know about love languages, it may not sit. It's really important to understand what is their love language and then do what is, do it, even though it's not natural for you. That's the hard part. So use their love language, because that will then pour into the positive cup and put more into the positive cup. And then the third one is stop adding to their negative cup. So one couple came to me when unfortunately their marriage was pretty much on the rocks, and I sat them down and we were having a mediation session where the wife was getting to speak openly, freely. So in a mediation session, I get two people to talk to each other in a special way where they're not emotional, where they actually get to express in a safe way. I'm there as the referee almost. I make sure I manage the conversation. Nobody can say anything that is spiteful, that normally happens in an argument. It's all emotional. Nobody's listening to each other. So I get them to speak, and then the other person will acknowledge first. So in this session, mediation session, the husband, he couldn't understand why the wife wanted to divorce him. Like, the relationship had gotten so bad, she was on the verge of divorce. She was just like, and that's when he realized, oh my God, something is wrong here. And he came to me. So when we were listening to the story from the wife, then it became clear as to why the husband hadn't realized things had gotten so bad. So what was happening was they would have an argument about something, and he would get so angry and he would put her down. He would say so many harsh things to the point where she would then just be quiet. And eventually what happened was so much went into the negative cup. So you can see in this diagram, it just built and built and built and built and built. Because she couldn't get her point across to him, she would end up being quiet. That resentment built up, and it had built up so high. Now it had got to the point where she was just like, I'm done with this relationship. I'm done with this marriage. So there was a disagreement, a heated argument. She would then shut down, so it didn't lead to understanding. And so the distance grew. In other words, the negative cup was getting more and more full. And so this is a problem, was going round and round this cycle, the unhealthy argument cycle, to the point where it became very difficult. There was very little window of tolerance. So that's why I always say, before the relationship gets to this point, seek help. Like, if it's from me, if it's from somebody else, go seek help before it gets that bad. Because once it gets to this stage, it's very difficult to come out of it. And what has to happen is you have to go through a process of forgiveness. So I had to take the wife through a process of forgiveness in order for there to first of all be some window of tolerance, so then I could get them to engage with each other again. So it wasn't so bad for him, because unfortunately, like, he was the one who was doing most of the speaking in the argument. So he kind of got it out of the system. So for him, it was like, oh, the relationship is all good. In other words, there wasn't stuff going into his negative cup as much as what was going into hers. There was a big imbalance there, which is why she ended up saying, yes, I want a divorce. So in conclusion, don't give up on each other. So if you are feeling that your relationship is going south, don't give up. Like, use these principles that we spoke about today, thinking about the positive and the negative cup, to actually work on it. And If the relationship is going south, reach out for help, and I can offer support. And the first thing I wanted to actually offer support with is I'm giving this free PDF. So if you go to my website and you just sign up for the emails, you'll automatically get access to the library where you'll get all these free PDFs. So here, for example, so this is one we've done specifically for this weekly wisdom. And one of the first things, again, one of the first exercises that I'd like you to go through is understand what's your love language, and then what's your love language for your partner. So there's some questions here, exercises you can do, like what makes you feel most loved, what hurts the most, what do you most ask from your partner, and then you kind of analyze yourself and understand, okay, which one of these 5 love languages mean the most to you, like that, and then you do the same for your partner, like that. So that's one exercise you can do to understand each other's love languages and then give their love language. And then the second exercise is to understand what is it that is going in the negative cup. What is it that goes in the positive cup, and what is it that goes in the negative cup? And again, to understand, it's really important to understand what not to do. Unfortunately, like I said in this, I give you the example of that client where the husband was just pouring into the negative cup and he didn't even realize. She was just staying quiet. He didn't know that it was actually destroying the relationship. So be aware of that. So you can access the PDF, all the free PDFs, all the free resources here at www.nijdey.com/events. And then if you would like to get in touch, if you do feel your relationship is on the rocks or going towards that way, please get in touch. I'll offer as much support as I can, and there have been cases where we have been able to save relationships. I told this in the last weekly wisdom, but it's such a nice story. I'll tell it again here in case you haven't listened to the previous weekly wisdom. There was one case where they weren't married. They were actually supposed to get married, but then things happened, and they ended up breaking up. And I got involved in the relationship just like a few weeks prior to their breakup. And so I really worked on the female in this case, worked on her story, I worked on what she was feeling. She was actually feeling that she wasn't qualified to marry this person. She was feeling she had very low self-esteem. And so and she thought she wasn't pretty. She's a really pretty girl, but she thought she wasn't pretty. So whenever she would see her fiance talking to another girl, she would get so insecure, thinking, okay, he's going to go off and marry her. They're just talking. So then they would end up having arguments, and it got to the point where he was just like, right, I've had enough. Like, you are too insecure. Like, this isn't happening. So once I worked on a story, we changed her internal beliefs, and we changed how she viewed herself. Actually, she became naturally so, shall we say, attractive, just like in terms of her personality. He then got back together with her, and they're happily married. I'm very happy to say they are happily married, with a child, and loving their marriage. And whenever I see them, I always I always pat myself on the shoulder. I'm like, yes, what a great success. So it can happen. So if you feel your marriage or your relationship is going towards disaster, then yes, definitely please get in touch. Or before it gets to that stage, remember, if the negative cup is going higher than the positive cup, please get in touch. At least when there's a window of tolerance, it makes it so much easier to deal with, to resolve. And there's also some online courses. There's one which is the Heartbreak to Heartfelt workshop that especially helps you to deal with the relationship with yourself. I always make this point that your relationship with others is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. So often I'll ask people to start with this course even before we do relationship coaching, because obviously being able to have having a good relationship with yourself is a foundation then for the relationship with your partner. Okay, so I will pause it there. Are there any questions? Anything you'd like me to address? Any other points you'd like me to bring up. And just if you haven't seen already, then there is we like to do songs on the channel. So we also have a song that is there. So please look it up. For all of these weekly wisdoms, actually, we put up a song, so you can have a listen there to encourage you in the principles that we talk about. Please enjoy the songs. One of my favorites is the love versus lust one. Okay, so if there are any questions, please say in the chat. I'll just have a quick read. Familiarity breeds contempt. Yes, very good point. You only know what you had when it's gone. I was with someone who used me for security while mocking me to 15 plus other men. Wow. She played a victim to get sympathy, managed a secret night call schedule by unblocking guys behind my back, and was physical with others while texting me baby. This wasn't just cheating, it was a full-time job of deception. That's terrible. Yes, so obviously I'm not talking about these kind of relationships here in terms of fixing these are deep underlying things that need to be addressed, and hopefully, especially with a relationship like that, hopefully you're out of that relationship if it can't be fixed. So not much chemistry. Chemistry is so important. A connection, a spark, all natural, cannot be faked. So many people wait too long until it's too late to explore help and counseling with their marriage. Yes, that's true. Which is why I'm trying to create more awareness, and that's why I'm doing these sessions, and especially talking about this, the positive and negative cup in every relationship. And that's a good guide. It gives you a good indicator whether the relationship is going in the right direction or not. So if you're noticing, especially after today's session, if you're noticing, yes, okay, I can work on this and pour more in the positive cup than the negative, great. But if you are noticing sometimes you get into a bad spiral, bad habits, if you are noticing that the negative cup is increasing, and especially more than the positive, then definitely need to get help. Somebody said, loving the songs. I'm glad you're enjoying the songs. Good. Are there any other questions? Okay. So thank you very much for watching. Please like the video. Please write any comments. Anything you'd like to share, anything you took away from this video, anything that will help you. And also, if you do feel your relationship needs some love and attention, please do get in touch. Oh, I just had a question. What would you say to a person whose partner is an avoidant and willing to see the signs that they need to work and acknowledge issues in the marriage? Whose partner is an avoidant and an unwilling, that makes more sense. What would you say to a person whose partner is an avoidant and unwilling to see the signs that they need to work and acknowledge issues in the marriage? This is a very difficult situation to be in. The person unfortunately has two options. So either to tolerate or to get out of the marriage. And sometimes even getting out the marriage, in one sense, is what the partner is looking for. So it's like you're screwed. Because sometimes even an avoidant person has, shall we say, psychological issues, which if are not addressed, they actually almost self-sabotage the relationship. So when the person says, oh, you know what, I'm leaving the marriage, they're like, good. That's what I wanted. How are you supposed to win in such a situation? It makes it very difficult. So if that person wants to stay in the relationship, then I have a client who is in such a relationship. The husband he just absolutely refuses to admit there's anything wrong and refuses to work on himself. Now, what's she supposed to do in that relation, in that situation, in that marriage? So I've helped to work on her to be able to tolerate and to be able to, shall we say, make the best use of a bad bargain, and to be in that relationship still maintaining it and still function, shall we say, and still like be okay. So sometimes it's like that. It's very difficult to deal with avoidant. That's why it's important to try and catch them being an avoidant in the first place, so that you don't get into such a marriage in the first place. You don't get into a relationship in the first place. Yeah, but it's very difficult afterwards. So maybe I don't know, maybe show them this video or some similar video that will help them. That will at least get them thinking. It is possible for avoidance to come out of that. But the thing that you'll notice, all coaches will say that they'll only work with people who want to help themselves. You can't force, that expression. You can only bring a horse to the water. You can't force it to drink. So yeah, they're very difficult situations sometimes. Thank you for the question. Very good question. Very difficult. Maybe not the answer if that's what you, if you're in that situation, or maybe not the answer you want to hear. But unfortunately, that is a situation. Wonderful. Okay, so next weekly wisdom, we will be discussing more about this negative cup. I think this is one of the things that I see a lot of, and like I said, I like to be of the mood of let's try and save marriages before they get that bad. So I'm going to be discussing, so over the next 2 sessions, I'll be discussing the 3 biggest mistakes made by men and the 3 biggest mistakes made by women in relationships. So yes, please subscribe if you haven't already, and please continue. I'm doing these sessions for you, the viewers. So yes, I hope you enjoyed today, and please share the video if you thought it was of value and may help somebody else. Okay, wonderful. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.